For y'all that were not here for the NFL playoffs, the way I do my previews is a tier system. I don't do S tier, B tier, C tier, blah, blah, blah. That's boring. What I do is 4 tiers I made up myself that I feel like much better describes a team's chance to make the finals. Not win it, make it. Can't judge who's going to win it yet. We'll get there when we get there. Those tiers are as follows. Tier 1, shits and giggles. That doesn't mean you're not going to win. It just means if you don't, you're there for shits and giggles, and that is fine. Tier 2, too much dip on your chip. I feel like that one's self-explanatory. Your expectations are a little bit too high considering what your team actually is. Tier 3, we're going to need Jesus, which means you need some type of divine miracle and a lot of things to break your way in order for you to make these finals. And then our top tier, tier 4, you gonna need Jesus, which is the overwhelming favorites to make the finals. So since I said make the finals, obviously we're gonna go per conference. As I am recording this, the playing games are literally happening on the other side of this camera. So the playing teams we will cover towards the back end of these because it's gonna age like milk immediately when this podcast comes out. So let's start with the Western Conference, and we're going to start with the first tier, shits and giggles. This is a 1-team tier. Our 1 seed, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, a 1 seed being in the playoffs for shits and giggles doesn't usually work that way, but the Oklahoma City Thunder are a unique case. They are a team that will suffer from something I refer to as young nigga syndrome. One day when I'm on TV and I have to be a little more clear on can't really say nigga on a public process, I will find a better term for it. But right now, I don't got it. What that means is when you are a young team and you have not made a deep playoff run yet, or any playoff run yet, because this team hasn't won a playoff series or made it to the playoffs yet, it is damn near impossible for you to do it. Think about every team to ever win the NBA Finals or even make it. They are teams that have failed in the playoffs before. There are lessons to be learned in failure, and in the NBA specifically, it is impossible to make it without it. That's what I mean when I say young nigga syndrome. They're a young team. If they were to make the finals, they'd be the anomaly. But the good part is they're ahead of schedule. They don't have to make the finals yet. SGA is younger than me, and he is going to be first team All-NBA, second in MVP voting, more than likely. But I'm assuming. We're going to do all NBA voting at the end too, by the way. Chet Holmgren would be rookie of the year if a 7'5" alien didn't play in San Antonio. And Jalen Williams looks like the second coming of Kawhi Leonard. Everything is pointing up. But when you start going against more experienced teams, it just doesn't, like, it just doesn't curl over the way you want it to, no matter how talented you are. For example, there's a very realistic scenario that their first round matchup is going to be against the LeBron James Lakers or the Steph Curry Warriors. Neither one of those teams are as good as OKC, but you know what they are? Experience. And that is what matters in these times. Next tier, the too much dip on your chip tier. We got 2 teams in this one. First one is the 3 seed Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, they also suffer from young nigga syndrome, but because of the Rudy Gobert trade, they have to move ahead of schedule. They're not here for shits and giggles because they went a little too all in. So if they don't make at least the conference finals, they will be making big changes in the offseason, i.e. Karl Anthony Towns will probably be on another team. Speaking of Karl Anthony Towns, I've heard a lot about him coming back for the playoffs and being a second scoring option behind Anthony Edwards will work to the Timberwolves' advantage. In theory, you are correct. In practice, does nobody remember watching Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs pretty much every year of his career? Fouling out of games at the worst possible times. The worst possible time fouls in general. Going out there and scoring 9 points. Poor defensive effort in a conference where Jokic exists. And in the event that he does foul out, let's say it's late in the game, they need to create a shot. They now have one shot creator in Anthony Edwards, who, as great as we all think he is, how much is he realistically going to be able to do by himself for an extended period of time for a playoff series? Not much. This team is great on the defensive end, though. Rudy Gobert, man in the middle, and their perimeter defenders like Naz Reid have really been holding it down. And when Anthony Edwards is locked in, he's one of the best defensive wings in the league. If there's ever a time for him to be locked in, it's right now. So if there's a time for them to win their first playoff series, it's now. But as far as them making the finals, I just can't see it. Next up, we got the 6th seed, the Phoenix Suns, who have way too much dip on their chip. They may be the dip on their chip All-Americans because they went all in a way that I don't think I've ever seen before. Not only just trading for KD last year, trading for Bradley Beal this offseason, just paid Grayson Allen. So for the most part, for the next 4 years, that's their 4 main core people. The owner of the Suns allegedly is using his alleged, because rich people like to sue people. That alleged mortgage fraud money is being put to use on this roster at least. So Phoenix fans, while you're paying too much for your house, at least you can be happy about that. Although this is one of the best Kevin Durant seasons we've had probably statistically since he was on the Oklahoma City Thunder, but since I'll say the 2017 Warriors from an eye test standpoint. At 35 years old, how long are we going to expect this to continue? Because they're having him play center most of these games, again, in a conference where Nikola Jokic exists. Now, when Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker all play together, they are 26-15, which is meh by NBA standards. The problem with that is, in terms of experience playing together, which is essential when you get to the playoffs, they've only played 41 games together. So for all intents and purposes, their offense is going to be your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, which, as a Celtics fan, let me tell you, doesn't turn out too well in crunch time moments. Next up, we got the we're gonna need Jesus tier. First on this list is the Los Angeles Clippers, and I can keep this one pretty brief. You are asking me to believe in a lot of wild shit here. The health of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, James Harden and Russell Westbrook to be consistent throughout the playoffs, if not flame out entirely, and post LeBron James Ty Lue to not mess the game up game plan wise. You're asking way too much of me. It's easier to just believe in Jesus, to be honest. Throw me a Bible. That might be a better adjustment for me. And the 5 seed, the Dallas Mavericks, this is a little less wild to believe in because the argument for the Mavericks is they're going to have the best player in the series for every series but one. 2, if another team we'll get to in the Eastern Conference ends up making it to the finals, even though that's also going to take a miracle from Jesus. Let me not get too ahead of myself here. Luka Doncic in the playoffs, I have the numbers in front of me here, is 32.5 points a game, 9.3 rebounds a game, 7.8 assists a game, in 28 games in his career. His points per game are second all-time behind Michael Jeffrey Jordan. To say he is an all-time playoff performer at this point in his career already is like a no duh, yeah, clearly we have eyes type thing, right? He's been the only scoring option on pretty much all those teams outside of the Jalen Brunson, please help us, Luka Doncic is hurt year. And with the addition of Kyrie Irving, everyone expected that to be different. But I got a nice little number for you that made me laugh out loud when I was researching for this podcast. His usage rate last year was 37.6%. His usage rate this year, 36%, and leads the league. His usage rate for his entire career is 35.7%. So although Kyrie came in, Luka didn't adjust shit. Ain't adjust the damn thing. And he just won a scoring title. So everyone's saying he has to go nuclear for them to win and make a run to the finals. What does nuclear look like if he already averages 32 a game? Are we talking 38-40? And then where does Kyrie come into this? Sidebar, Kyrie Irving, sir, I owe you an apology. I said on the opening kickoff podcast, shout out my man Dave Steinwano, I said I will not talk about Kyrie Irving until it is Black History Month has come and gone, and he has not said anything wild, done anything wild, and is still playing basketball. Because with him, you never know. You just don't know. He could join the Nation of Islam in the middle of the series, and we'd all just be like, all right, yeah, checks out. Not a word. Not one headline. Not nothing. He's just getting buckets. Not even a complaint about not getting the ball enough. Not some weird body language. Not throwing his hands up in the air late in the game when Luka's not giving him the ball. It's It's honestly incredible. This is best case scenario for them to have Kyrie Irving on their team for the way this has turned out. No matter how much of a Mavericks fan you are, no matter how much of a Kyrie Irving fan you are, there's no way you thought this was going to be the outcome. As the second option, he's averaging 25 a game. As a comparison, those are essentially his numbers when he was next to LeBron as the number 2 guy. Except he's about 6-7 years older now. And the sneaky part about this Dallas Mavericks team is they're a lot better defensively than you would think they are. So the thought of them making it to the finals is not unreasonable, but you still need a couple things to break your way in a way that you can't necessarily just assume is going to happen, which is why they're in the we're gonna need Jesus tier. All right, the you're gonna need Jesus tier, the overwhelming favorites, surprise to absolutely nobody. I don't care that they're the 2 seed. The Denver Nuggets, the returning champions from last year. They have the best player in basketball with Nikola Jokic, who more than likely will win MVP again this year. And the other of the top 3 teams in this conference have never won a playoff series before. My main question with them, though, is how healthy is Jamal Murray? He missed 7 games around that late March, early April range with a sprained right knee. We've known Jamal Murray to have knee injuries essentially his whole career. Without Jamal Murray, they are 13-10. They're barely above 500. As a comparison, the 10 seed of the Western Conference, the Warriors, are 46-36. So they are worse than a play-in team without Jamal Murray. With Jamal Murray, they're the best team in basketball, not named the Boston Celtics. We'll get to them when we get to the East. Granted, he did come back and he had his best game against the Spurs in a game that they weirdly lost that I still don't know how it happened. He had 35 in a game where the Spurs didn't play any of their guards. But unless somebody goes nuclear, they're going to have the best player in every single series they play. So that can't be discounted. And the experience of winning a championship last year, pretty handily, by the way. I think we forgot just how much they kind of walked to the finals last year. They are indeed the overwhelming favorites in the Western Conference. We're going to touch on the playing teams really quickly. 7 seed New Orleans. The Zion apologists have come out in full force now that he's been playing really well, and I've never seen a group of people miss the point so severely. Guys, this is what we've been asking for. Post-playing game, Zion's been in shape, he's been playing great, and the people who actually watch basketball every week, every game or whatever, they see it. We see it. This is what we've been asking for. We're on your side here. The fat jokes may have gone a little far, but at the core of them was, hey, you're good at basketball. This thing is stopping you from being good at basketball. Can you please stop doing it so you can be good at basketball, please? And now he stopped. They're the 7 seed, and I'm not saying they don't stand a chance against the Lakers. We'll get to the Lakers in a second. But if they were to pull this off, a victory lap is well-deserved. But please, don't come at us like we hate Zion. We don't. We want better for Zion. We want the best for Zion. All right, the 8 seed Lakers have been the toughest team for me to figure out throughout this entire year, right? Because this is the best Anthony Davis season since he's been a Laker. You could say the bubble season, but they're still trying to figure things out. The finals run was incredible. That's different. But for as far as the regular season, he was still the second player. He was the 2-man. It was different. 75 games played for Anthony Davis. The most in 6 years. So we're going back to the Pelicans now. Just under 25 points a game, just under 13 boards a game, and just under 2.5 blocks a game. 39-year-old LeBron James is 25-8-7, and somehow this team is an 8th seed. And after the play-in tournament, there was a stretch of time where it looked like this team was going to miss the playoffs altogether. So Lakers fans, when you hear / see this, I want answers. And don't tell me it's just Darvin Ham. Don't tell me Darvin Ham's the only reason why, because if he was, LeBron would have got him out of there by now. The 9 seed, the Sacramento Kings, the world has such high hopes for this team, but not this guy. After they lost to the Warriors last year, their flaws were pretty clear. Hey, bring in a wing with experience so that this team could take the next step. You know what they added? Nothing. They did nothing to change. The rest of the league got better. They did not, which is why they went from a 3 seed to a 9 seed. That's what happens when you don't improve your team from the offseason and you just expect your team to be better the next year because you overachieved the year before. Oklahoma City, take this as a cautionary tale. The 10th seed, the Golden State Warriors. By every objective measure, this has been a horrible season for the Warriors, right? Draymond just just Draymond. The insert story here, Draymond Green. Klay Thomas, Anthony Wiggins being inconsistent. Steve Kerr looking like he's giving up on life on a lot of these sideline games. Would you believe me if I told you they have a better record than last year? Because they do. Yet and still, I still have to ask the question, how bad does this have to get for the Warriors to blow it up? I think if they lose to the Kings and they don't even make the playoffs, I think that's a no-brainer. You got to blow this team up. But let's say they make it to... Let's say they end up the 8th seed and they lose in 6 to OKC. Then what do? Klay wants an extension. You just extended Draymond the year before. Kuminga's going to want more time. Andrew Wiggins is more expensive. Steve Kerr, again, looks like he just needs a vacation. What's the answer?